Good evening. We'd like to welcome you to the Lowline Fire Community Information. Hold on just a moment for those in virtual land. We're getting the last of our in-person guests in the door. Excellent. I really want to thank everybody who made it out here this evening in person and also with us online with Facebook Live. So with that, this community has been so gracious to the whole team, our firefighters, to your local resources and cooperators. We just want to thank you. You guys are so generous and we really appreciate you being here. I'm Michelle Kelly, one of the Public Information Officers. I am with the Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team 1, and we're here to serve your community on the Lowline Fire. For this evening's meeting, we will be recording this so that it will be posted later for additional viewing. We will be holding all in-person questions until after the meeting around the sides of the room so that we can answer your questions personally and give you that personal attention. If you find your question hasn't been answered, at the end of the meeting, then we'll definitely get your name and number and we'll get back with you. We'll do the reach out for you on that. For our online audience, we do have public information officers monitoring this and they will answer as many questions as they can. If you have questions that we're not able to answer, get us your contact information and we will get back with you with those answers. So with that, this evening, I'd like to start us with the fire update with our Operations Section Chief, Paul DeMerica.
Good evening, Paul DeMerica, Operations Section Chief for Rocky Mountain Team 1. First, the fire, yes, it did get rain. I don't know how much yet. I think you're up next, right? Meteorologist to let us know. So I'm going to start off with that this fire, we like to call this like it's a full suppression incident. And it's values driven. What I mean by values is there's quite a few values around this, the area of the fire, such as wilderness streams. You've got North Star Ranch, or Star Mountain Ranch. Thank you. I almost called North Star. It was a fire I was on like 6 years ago at the North Star Ranch. That's why they all blends together. You got the Castleton Ranch, and you've got Mill Creek. We call Mill Creek west of the structures down here. You've got a lot of different values, a lot of different ranching lands, agricultural land, also sagebrush habitat. And so this fire obviously needed attention. So what we do is we grab those values that were presented to us, and then we look at the area and say, okay, we want to protect the wilderness streams and get all those values. You know, we want to keep the fire west of County Road 730. I almost said something else. I almost called it east, but it's west. And we wanted to, we also want to protect the structures down here. So you want to keep the fire north of Mill Creek. So those are the types of things that we look at when we come in. Then we break the fire down into divisions. And this fire, currently we have 4 divisions. A Division Alpha, a Division Zulu, a Division Yankee, and a Division W. So we break it down to, this one only has 4 sections. I've been on fires where we have 26 plus divisions. So this one relatively is small in comparison to some of the other fires that we typically do. So for Division Alpha, we got on the scene is we found that the fire was only burning in the timber stringers down here. And it was fairly simple for us to be able to get in there. There's some existing ranch roads. We put a little bit of dozer, not a little bit, we actually reinforced those ranch roads with dozer line, heavy equipment out there. And then what we did is we wanted to burn out these pockets of fuel. Because the sage and the grass out here to the east isn't conducive to burning right now. A lot of that agricultural land grass is still not burning and the sage isn't burning, which is good, because if it was, we'd have probably a different situation. That fire might have been out to County Road 730. So therefore, the fire stopping naturally. What we didn't want to happen was 3 weeks from now when we're gone, if we didn't do anything at all, and that does clear out, that we're nervous that this fire would make some runs out towards the county road and we'd be back at it again. So by burning this out, we've taken this punch out of the equation. Currently, we have folks. That's mostly complete. What I mean by mostly is there's a little bit of a dirty burning here, we like to call it that, to where we need to get back in there in a couple days when it starts drying out again, just to make sure that there's no internal burning that in spots later on. So, but other than that, for the most part, this entire side, or this entire division is locked in. So there's no more threat for the fire to move east this way. Division Zulu, fairly similar. This is our division breakdown here. We were able to actually get mostly direct line on this part of the fire using dozer line and hand line. And they were feeling really confident. Tomorrow, when you see an updated map, you're gonna see containment on most of this side of the fire. So we've upped that significantly today. It just does not reflect on this map. So we'll have containment throughout this. So really, we're looking really good at the fire moving towards County Road 730 and those values out there. As we get closer to the wilderness, sometimes we call this no man's land, because truly as it becomes into the roadless area, it becomes harder for us as firefighters to look at a piece of ground that's favorable for us to go in there and suppress the fire. So we look at an indirect option. And that's what we're doing as you get farther out here. As you can see, the fire's here. What we've done is there's an old 2-track and an old trail in here. It does tie into the Lowline trail out here. As we put dozer line in and we prepped that with crews to keep the fire from also advancing north toward wilderness streams. That's been very successful. Again, the issue is that we ran into not just weather, but aspen stand. And aspen doesn't typically burn, especially after a winter like we just had. So when you get into the clumps of aspen, especially when it comes to the predominant fuel type, fire doesn't want to move through it. So really, from here on out, it looks like we've gone about as far as we can due to the aspen, which is a good thing. But this line is in place, and it will be in place all the way to the wilderness boundary. We still haven't completed all the burning out. We may not get to that just due to the fuel type and the fire kind of calming down. So quite a bit, especially with this fire. Down in Division Yankee, which is just above Mill Creek, we found a ridge line here that goes all the way to the wilderness boundary. Right about here at the wilderness boundary is a big rock outcropping that looks like a really good natural feature to be able to tie that fire into. What we've been doing here is we've prepped this, we've widened that ridge line, and what we've done is we've kind of kept even with the fires, what we call it. We bring fire with us to bring our safety zones and whatnot as the firefighters move along this ridge line. The rain prohibited us from the last 2 days. We got a little bit in there yesterday, mostly today. We weren't able to do anything, so that stopped for now. But the fire, again, is not doing a whole lot because on the backside of this is all aspen. And as we get, the farther we get up, we get more into an aspen patch, which won't burn, which is a good thing, typically. Now we get to where the hard part. So we're able to put this in, we're able to do this, we're able to put a line into here. Now we get out to the wilderness. And anybody I flew it, and I'm sure you folks as locals have been out there, there is really no good place to put our firefighters. Therefore, now does that mean we're letting it burn? No, it doesn't mean that. It does mean, though, that we may be in, as a community, in for the long haul. And we don't mean it by that it's going to continue to do with this moisture and being a high elevation fire, especially with the predominant fuel type being aspen. There may not be a whole lot of smoke, but I do predict that there'll still be some fire activity out in the wilderness for the near future. And maybe it could be weeks, it could be longer than that. But the values at risk out here in the wilderness do not align with our responder risk, meaning we protected the values, but out here, what do we, we're going to put folks in places where our probability of success is fairly low, and then our risk to our responders is very high. And then you ask yourself for what? So, and to be honest with y'all, after I flew it could use a little fire in there. I mean, it's the ecology of it all, in the wilderness especially. Some of that needs to get cleaned up. Especially in these timber stringers here, once we do that, you're going to see a pretty nice oak population. I imagine that I don't want to migrate into that. So, but it's really for here. We're still looking at that. We are going to create another division because most likely that'll be a monitor status. We do have a UAS module as well. Like we're utilizing that now just our helicopters, and that's pretty cool. We can fly the fire quite a bit and get some real-time video of what's going on. And we do anticipate that to be something that you all have here in the future. But we still have some work ahead of us. I just want to let you guys know out here, we're still looking at options. We haven't stopped doing that. We haven't found a good place to put our people. With that, we have we have a structural protection group, just so folks know. We have really focused down here in Mill Creek. Down here in the bottom at drop point 1, which I think is you guys call Mill Creek East. Or is it? I don't know. You guys have 3 names down there. There's Mill Creek West, East, and then there's something in the middle. Maybe just Mill Creek. Mill Creek. So we do have structure folks out there and night that have been kind of keeping an eye on this while we're sleeping. And it's a small contingent of folks, but they're definitely keeping an eye on it. And that structure protection group, I know, plumbed all this. What we mean by that is putting water handling accessories out there, sprinkler kits, those types of things, in case the fire does want to come down. After flying it yesterday, I don't see that. Very low probability of that. I never say never, but very, very low probability of that. All right, that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And next, I'd like to go ahead and welcome Scott Stearns, our incident meteorologist.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Stearns with the National Weather Service. I work out of the Grand Junction Forecast Office, so this is my forecast area, but I'm here right now serving essentially as a consultant to the Rocky Mountain Team 1 as far as weather conditions are concerned related to the fire. So that said, I'll try to be fairly brief about the weather. So far, what we've seen on the day that the fire made the big push to the southeast, we saw fairly dry, warm conditions, not a whole lot of wind. There was a little bit of obviously a northwest wind involved. But the thing about when you have fire make big pushes like this, there's often a third dimension to it, and so there's interaction with the atmosphere more than just the atmosphere blowing winds and temperatures being warm and relative humidity being dry. There's actually a stability factor, and I won't get into a whole lot of it, but just understand that it's a complex situation that goes on once fires reach a size of this nature and they get enough steam to move forward. Now, that being said, those conditions don't exist right now, and on top of that, as far as the conditions on the ground are concerned, we're fairly moist, relatively moist, I should say, at this point. We have been for the last 2 or 3 days now, and that has allowed things to slow down in terms of fire progression. Paul was talking about how we made some good progress in terms of burning out and being able to secure some of these lines, and the weather to some degree helped out with that activity a couple days ago. And now, unfortunately, we got a little bit too much rain, put a hamper on some of the operations for today, but we're still sitting in a decent spot, it looks like, at this point. So that being said, looking forward, the actual forecast, we are getting back into a warmer and drier period. Tomorrow is really the last decent chance of precipitation, enough precipitation anyway that's going to affect the fire. Not that we don't have chances for thunderstorms moving forward. Those will still remain in the forecast through at least Friday time frame. But once we get to Thursday and beyond, the wetting rain chances that it really would provide enough precipitation to have a large impact on the fire, those are going down. And so as we get into Saturday and onward, beyond that, afternoon winds start to increase just a notch or two up from what they have been. Those humidities will be dropping below what they have been, and the temperatures will be rising above what they have been the last few days in this moist period. So the moist period that we've had the last 2 or 3 days or so, again, it's a monsoon-like surge of moisture, but that's not here to stay. It's gone starting tomorrow. And some of the longer-term weather outlooks, model guidance and such, suggest that it probably will not return for quite some time. So for sure not in the next week, probably not in the next 2 weeks, and I think there's a decent possibility that we won't see a whole lot of moisture through the month of August at this point. So beyond that, things get a little bit more uncertain in terms of what's going to happen because models are only so good. Everybody knows forecasts are only so good, especially so far out. So that being said, there's not real good chances for monsoon activity, and that's been predicted a couple months ago, really, that the monsoon is not going to be very good this year, and we're seeing that come to fruition at this point, I think. So that being said, Paul already talked about this, but I'll kind of touch on it lightly. the fire behavior aspect side of things here, that it's going to allow this thing to likely continue to move uphill to the west, where there is no containment on that west side currently, whereas on the east side, things are sitting fairly good at this point. Not to say that it's impossible that fire would move out of these lines, but it's highly unlikely, I think, at this point. Whereas to the west, that's where we're kind of monitoring things for further movement into that wilderness area, or towards that wilderness area. That being said, as Paul already mentioned, you do have some different fuels in here, and so as we get into Aspen and just higher elevations in general, the weather conditions change, and as such, the long duration fuel effects are not quite the same as they are in a lower elevation. So that'll affect fire activity as it continues to slowly move westward, as projections indicate at this point, but don't necessarily expect that the activity will be the same as it continues to slowly move westward and upward in elevation. That being said, smoke production from this kind of chunking activity is going to continue. It's not like it's going to go out tomorrow. And to be quite honest, even if we were to get a decent amount of rain, with the large fuels that are moving fire, that are carrying fire and continue to burn at this point, it would take quite a considerable amount of rainfall to be able to completely put that out. So just something to keep in mind. It's kind of unrealistic, in my opinion, at this point, to expect that this western side is going to naturally extinguish or anything like that in the next month. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Next, I'd like to welcome up our Deputy Incident Commander, Mark Giacoletto.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm the Deputy Incident Commander, Dan Dallas of the Rocky Mountain Team 1. Was double booked today. He's got a day job, a regular job, and responds when the fire bell rings. So oh, there he is. All right, we'll forget all that then. You want to talk? I just want to, before I get started here, I did want to just make a couple of comments about part of the world here in Colorado. So I live in Cody, Wyoming. I retired Forest Service for 38 years, and we got some pretty country up there. It's rough, rugged country. Yellowstone Park is over there just to our west. Country's full of grizzly bears. But when I come to Colorado and came down in the fall here, several years ago, over to the Decker Fire out of Salida, I would say what I saw was spectacular. And I mean that in all sincerity. Between the color of the leaves, the high mountains in the background, and I see those same features around here. And so we really appreciate your concern for what's going on out here on your forest where you recreate, and your families probably have for years, and they will want to continue to. So with that, so we're Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team 1. And so what is a complex incident management team? What's an incident management team do? So when an incident occurs, and in this case a wildfire, we don't always respond to wildfires, but we do, that's our most frequent response. It could be hurricanes, floods, space shuttle crash several years ago. So we respond, and really it's when the incident, in this case the fire, it just exceeds the capacity of the local resources. It's not that they don't know what they're doing or they can't do it. It's just the amount of resources that you need to do it requires quite a bit of support. So right now we've got over 400 personnel here on the fire, and that just takes a lot of coordination, logistical support, and capacity of people that can come in there that are specialized in various disciplines and to support the firefighting effort. So our team is comprised of folks here, primarily from the Rocky Mountain area, geographic area, so that's Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, Kansas, and South Dakota. And then it's not only from those areas, but also across a variety of different agencies. We've got folks, Forest Service, BLM, National Park Service. We've got folks from local fire departments throughout the country, or throughout the geographic area, as well as people that are retired like me, that just, they're on call and ready to respond when you've got an incident like that. So we divide ourselves, we were organized in a manner there that to support all the different things that go on a fire. There's got the actual firefighting to do. And so that's what's done by our operations group. We've got then the planning function that provides, that does all the mapping, the situational update, the data, the weather information, the fire behavior information, puts together our plan, that we have a written plan every day that is supplied to the firefighters, and that's got just not only the action plan for it, but it's got other information in there that firefighters may need in there. We've got a finance section, which sees to it that the firefighters get paid, but for all the equipment and supplies that we get in, those folks get paid as well. And then we've got the logistical function, and folks, I think it was General Schwarzkopf that one of his sayings was that amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk logistics. And that is very true, because without the support of logistics for the food and water and supplies and all the tech things that we need in this day to not only fight the fire, but also to support the people that are supporting the firefighters. So we've got that function. And then it goes along with it, we've got an information officer, and that group of folks, we're the ones that are organizing the meeting tonight. If you're following things on Facebook or other social media, that's that group of people taking care of that. We've got liaison officers that are there to work with all the different parties and cooperators that may be affected by the fire. We have daily meetings to work with those groups. And then last we've got safety, and safety officers are there to provide their input and oversight, see that our firefighters are operating in a safe environment. You heard Paul earlier talk about making sure we're giving firefighters assignments that they can be successful at, and yet the risk to them is acceptable. While our safety folks help in the analysis of those different things, and help also oversee the providing of the medical services in case folks get hurt or injured on the fire. Within 24 to 48 hours, we took the fire over we got here and got a briefing at 1800 one night, and the next morning we took over the fire, and within 48 hours we had full services in for over 400 people, and we've managed incidents where we've had 1,500 to 2,000 people, bigger than some towns I've lived in, and maybe some years as well. So that's kind of just was an overview of what a complex incident managed team does and how they're configured. I would say this though, that our success, we come here, we're ordered by the agencies that have jurisdictions over the ground where the fire is burning or where it's also threatening, and then we depend highly on the working relationship with them as well as the other entities in the community that are being affected as well on it, and the relationships are important to us. We don't succeed, I don't care how well we do out here in the fire, but there's lots of other issues that are going on in the background, and we don't succeed without having those strong relationships and the help from those various stakeholders in here. So thanks for your time, and we'll pass it on to the next person.
All right. So our incident commander talked about those people who brought us in here, and we're going to go ahead and start working with those groups to start introducing themselves, and they're the agencies that hire us. And the first one would be Joe Dunson with Division of Fire Prevention and Control, State of Colorado.
Hello, my name is Joe DeWinsing. I'm with the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. I'm an agency administrator trainee on this fire. So I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit, why we're here as the state and DFPC. So once a fire starts, and it goes on into a fire protection district, once the suppression activities exceeds that district's capabilities, the chief will pass on the responsibilities to the sheriff. And then once those capabilities are exceeded, that's when the sheriff will contact us and ask us to take the responsibility. So our part in this is to represent the sheriff in the county. With that, Sheriff Adam Murray.
I know that seems kind of weird, that the sheriff has anything to do with fires, but statutorily on private lands in the county, I am the fire marshal. It exceeds my limitations very quickly, so we rapidly call the state and gladly and sign that little name, check that little box. Opens up the emergency fire fund in the state of Colorado, that type of stuff. They deal with the federal government, who has been exceptionally great during this incident. I've been on a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, these guys have been on a lot. I've got a wildland fire background from the 90s. I've been on some fires with Mr. Barton back there in the past that weren't so good. This one has been awesome. These guys have just been outstanding for our community. They're more than, they're hospitable, they're grateful, they're careful, they're, safety-wise, they're talking and watch our citizens, watch the crosswalks, don't speed through town. They're telling these guys that every day, which is just great. Their support is needed. Nobody in this community can handle this type of an event. And that kind of knocks me down to talking about the support that we get from the other county entities, like our county commissioners who are here in the room. There again, I've been on some fires, and I know these guys have too, because I've heard them mention it, where the county commissioners don't even take an interest in what's going on. And these guys are there at most all the morning briefings and stuff of that nature. The EOC staff, which is going to be coming up next to talk real quick, they're the heartbeat of this incident for the Gunnison County. Everybody that staffs that EOC has specific jobs. They're doing call trees and logistical stuff for the county folks. And I mean, she'll go through all that, I'm certain, but they are the heartbeat for Gunnison County when it comes to these large incidents. Our road and bridge department helps out. They provided road signs for the road closures, which I'll get into here in a second. They also provided staffing for that road closure on 730 as a manned road closure for the first couple days. The whole cooperation and everything that we're getting out of this whole incident has been really great. Going into the road closures, we moved the road closure on County Road 730 and moved it up to where County Road 7 comes in. That's at what we call Miller Lane, right? Harry Miller's old place. I guess it's a state wildlife area for the most part now, and a little bit of private in there. But that road goes on up off of County Road 730 and connects with County Road 818, which we call the Antelope Road. At least that's what I've always called it. Right there, Kenmore Reservoir, basically. So there's a road closure on County Road 818 at County Road 7, and then there's a road closure on County Road 7 at County Road 730. And then the County Road 730 road closure is just a little bit past County Road 7. We moved it up to there and we unmanned it because we felt that the community was graceful enough that they chose not to go up there and plug the roads up so the firefighters, could get through easier. And for the safety and well-being of everybody, we just had to make that closure obvious and promote that throughout the community. So I also have to deal with evacuations, which I know is a big question. There were some issues at first with Wilderness Streams evacuations. I think we got that all squared away. Total miscommunication with a person. I'll leave it at that. The pre-evacuation areas on the south end, we lifted and brought them all the way up to County Road 7. We actually had another area identified, but nobody lives there, so if we put out a notice, it would be kind of awkward where, you know, maybe the sage chickens would leave, don't know, sorry. But right now, we have that full evacuation area on Mill Creek. We have pre-evacuation plans. If the fire decides to go northbound, we got trigger points there with these guys, and they're the ones that are telling us, hey, this is what I see. And I'm like, yep, I see it too, because they're the professionals with the fire. So with that being said, we'll talk if anybody has questions about any of that afterwards. And Lisa from the EOC.
So I'm Lisa Clay. I'm the Deputy Emergency Manager for Gunnison County. Thanks for that great introduction, Sheriff. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the EOC is doing. We have been activated since Wednesday afternoon for this fire. And so a lot of what the EOC does is just supporting the incident and a lot of the consequence management of the incident. So the firefighters and the incident management team are doing great suppressing the fire and supporting the fire. But there's some other impacts to the community beyond just the suppression of the fire, like the evacuations and the road closures and updating our county website and doing some pre-planning and things like that. And so that's what a lot of the County Emergency Operations Center has been doing. We've also been staffing a call center. Some of you guys may have talked to some of the staff in there. And so really just also trying to support the incident management team and being a kind of local point of contact to help make those connections in the community when they need them, since they don't know everyone in the community, so they can kind of work through us and we can help make some of those connections. So yeah, we're here supporting the fire, and we're still activated, but definitely grateful for the support from the incident management team. So I also wanted to talk briefly about evacuation notices and what that actually means. So you guys, we'll issue evacuation notices that might say something like a pre-evacuation or a mandatory evacuation, and just want to make sure that the community is aware of what to do if you do get one of those notices. And so I just have a brief amount of time. So really, like a pre-evacuation notice is to just be prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice. Start gathering your important documents, putting things in your car, prepping your home to leave if you do get that alert that tells you to leave. And if you do get a mandatory evacuation notice, that's really saying you should leave now and there's an imminent threat. Leave your home and don't search for more information or try to get to call a number before leaving. Get to a safe area and then you can check in for more information. And we do have some information on the tables in the back that kind of go into these things in much more detail. And so please feel free to visit those tables. We have them in English and Spanish. And just a note, please don't call 911 just to get more information. If you do get an evacuation or a pre-evacuation notice, we really want to keep those lines open for emergency situations. And just a reminder that if you do get those notices and you have like livestock or anything or any large animals, the Gunnison County Fairgrounds is still open and you can bring your animals there and it's free of charge. We just ask that you check in at the office before just kind of dropping animals and leaving. And then one plug to sign up for our emergency notification system called Gunnison Regional Alerts. If you haven't signed up for that yet, it's the main way we're going to get, especially these emergency notifications out. They'll go through that system first, and then they kind of go to social media and websites and other platforms. If you haven't signed up, feel free to come talk to myself after this meeting. We also have an instructional flyer of how to sign up, and we have that in English and Spanish as well. And then one last plug, the county has made some great strides, and there's some excellent resources online and on the tables in the back about how you can prepare your home for wildfire before a fire comes through. Things like through defensible space and ignition-resistant building materials if you're doing some construction or some remodeling. The county did adopt the International Wildland Urban Interface Code, and so there are great resources in the county to help protect your home from catching fire in the first place. And you can visit our county website, GunnisonCounty.org, and the community development page has a lot of that information. And then we also have some information here. Thank you.
Thanks. I want to reach out to all of the local resources who've been here, and now I'd like to introduce our U.S. Forest Service Agency Administrator, Russ Bacon.
Good evening, everybody. As Michelle said, my name is Russ Bacon. I'm the agency administrator here for the Forest Service. So I'm filling in for your Forest Supervisor, Chad Stewart, who's out of the state right now. But also want to acknowledge your Gunnison District Ranger who's in the room today, Dale Funka, who's just raise your hand, Dale. That's all. That's good.
Good evening.
So appreciate everybody coming tonight, and I wanted to touch on just a couple of points that reinforce some things you've already heard from the team, and just spend a little bit of time on a couple other points. I want to talk a little bit about the initial response to this fire. I want to talk a little bit more about the overall strategy related to this fire and the long-term nature that we're all going to have to work together on, and then I'll touch a little bit on the area closures that we have in place. But let me start first with the initial response to the Lowline Fire. This particular fire got called in the morning on the Wednesday the 26th, and within 3 minutes, a dozen firefighters were on the way up the hill, and were actually on scene within about a half hour. They responded really quickly, ordered a helicopter, got to work on this fire really quickly. By noon, it was they ordered some additional resources, some additional crews. By about 2 o'clock, the fire was around 10 acres, but they had already ordered a load of smoke jumpers, additional aircraft, another really large helicopter, and by the time about 4 o'clock rolled around, this fire had already ordered 2 very large air tankers, 5 large air tankers, and 4 single-engine air tankers, which, having done this for a really long time, is really impressive. I'm super proud of the response of the district here in terms of how seriously they took this fire and really worked hard to try to suppress this fire. This fire quickly was recognized as not a good location because of the proximity to the homes and the other values in the area, and they did a really good job of doing their best to respond to this fire. By the time the night was over 100 firefighters were on scene, and we had already ordered the complex incident management team to come help us out. And so while this fire, and you heard from Paul talk about this fire, is a full suppression fire. We've asked this team to suppress this fire because of the proximity to some of these values and the threats that they were facing. You also have heard the challenge that Paul and the team are facing in trying to figure out how to address the west side of this fire. We take very seriously the balancing act between the risk to firefighters and the values that we're asking them to protect. And I think the team has done a really good job. The local district has done a really good job at that focus on those values first. And you heard Paul talk about the success they've had to really get to some really solid containment in some of those areas closest to those values. But this west side is a challenge, and you heard that from Paul. But we have the right team here to help us think through what this means long term. To have a fire like this go to 400 plus acres in such a short period of time after a really good snow year, right? Is definitely a wake-up call, right, in terms of the kind of fire behavior we can expect to see and might see later in the year, and having a good plan moving forward to address those actions and thinking about what this fire is going to do as it perhaps moves further up the hill and to the west is going to be a really key part of their success as a team to help us respond and work with everybody in this community to be successful. most important part for me with all of this is that you all, the cooperators that we have been working with, have been talking about this and working on about this and preparing for this, and it showed up in terms of how folks responded to this fire and how we continue to ask the team to work with everybody. Everybody has been just fantastic in terms of working together and troubleshooting issues and paying attention to the right stuff, which is the safety of our firefighters and protecting those critical values. And that's just really, really impressive and really glad to see it. But the rain does not stop this fire. You've heard that from the meteorologist, you've heard that from Paul. This is going to be a fire that's going to be putting up smoke for the duration of the fire season, likely. And that means we all stick together. This community has got to continue to work together and cooperate and coordinate and be patient and support the folks that are trying to get that work done up on the hill. And I've seen nothing that would tell me that you all would do otherwise. Really, really impressed with the amount of support and cooperation that has been happening on this fire. Certainly acknowledge that this is one of, if not the largest fire in the Gunnison Basin in the last 20 years. And it definitely is an opportunity to, one, learn about how we manage fire and also understand how fire is likely to continue to operate on this landscape. And so really just appreciate everything that folks have done. I'll just, one last thing I'll just mention is the area closures on the National Forest System lands. So we work really closely with the incident management team to right-size these closures and stay focused on firefighter safety and public safety. And when we start talking about a long duration fire like this, we're going to be working really closely to right-size and adjust the conditions as things go on through the summer. Certainly understand that part of the Gunnison National Forest is a really important recreation area for you in this community. And we'll continue to work with the team to try to find the right solution to addressing those concerns. So just as a recap, we have the right team here for us to be successful in managing this fire. I've worked with this team before. They've done fantastic at focusing on the values that we've asked them to protect, and they're working hard on what this long-term plan is. But we've all got to recognize that this is a long-term fire on this landscape. And finally, you all are really lucky to have the team that you have in terms of local government, emergency managers, the county sheriff, county commissioners. Just really impressive how this community has come together. And so with that, I'll say thanks for being here and really appreciate all of the support. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Russ. And next I'd like to bring up John Kaminski with the Bureau of Land Management. He is the field manager for the Gunnison Field Losses.
You still have my speech. Yeah, so John Kaminski, I'm the field manager for Gunnison Field Office, your public lands manager. Probably wondering why the BLM is part of this, and I'll just kind of pick up where Russ left off with the interagency concept. We're part of the planning area, and our closest parcel here is this 798 acre parcel that also hosts the Mill Creek Trailhead. I decided to have this closed on the 29th. We will keep this closed until firefighting operations are over and we can ensure the public safety. And that really is our goal, is to ensure the safety of our visitors, our residents, and our firefighting crews. I've been in the valley since 1982, and I've watched our weather patterns change and our fuel loads change. And like Russ said, we're probably going to see more of this kind of activity, unexpected. For the last 20 years, we haven't seen this kind of fire behavior, but we're planning projects to better address fuels on the landscape, and I hope that you keep your eyes out and for public notices in the paper or drop by our office for information about some of the projects we do have planned. We'd like to hear your comments and take your input. And then that is our goal, to just continue to work on these projects and make our public lands accessible and safe for the public. So that's all I have. Thanks.
I would like to thank all of our speakers who were here. This evening, we will have an air advisor in the back of the room, as well as we have Crested Butte Fire here with some prevention information, the State Forest Service with some information regarding defensible space. After we close the meeting, we will have staff from these agencies and also our public information officers around the maps to give you guys direct answers, to take questions. If we can't answer them, we'll get back with you on that, so please definitely reach out to us. Part of the reason we keep this format is our team has what we call a planning cycle, and that planning cycle at this time of day is very heavy with meetings for tomorrow's activities. And so if you see some of our staff step away from those conversations kind of quickly, it's nothing offensive. I already stole half of the staff to be here. They have another meeting coming up. And so we want to thank you all for being here and graciously giving us your time this evening. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you.